Hello, everyone. So, hope you're doing well. So, we are back here again with a few more geopolitical updates for today and yesterday, that is 16th Feb and 15th Feb 2026. So, we'll see what happened in the past 2 days and see how the world order is shaping up. So, as we discussed yesterday, there is a Munich security conference in Germany, and the main point around which is lingering around it, because obviously there are other points as well, like there's a China issue which we discussed yesterday, for which we'll be making a video. There is a point of um, US EU relations. Okay, so this thing is going on. I have one video to show you for it, which is commenting on the Munich security conference only. So this is from Global News. Let's take a look at it.
The message from hosts of the Munich Security Conference is shockingly stark. As world leaders from 50 countries and hundreds of top security experts converge in Germany, the group's report points directly at the U.S., stating, "The world has entered a period of wrecking ball politics. Sweeping destruction, rather than careful reforms and policy corrections, is the order of the day. The most prominent of those who promise to free their country from the existing order's constraints and rebuild a stronger, more prosperous nation is the current U.S. administration. As a result, more than 80 years after construction began, the U.S.-led post-1945 international order is now under destruction." Held annually in Germany, Donald Trump will not be attending the highly regarded conference, but last year, his deputy made enough waves.
The threat that I worry the most about vis-a-vis Europe is not Russia, it's not China, it's not any other external actor. And what I worry about is the threat from within, the retreat of Europe from some of its most fundamental values, values shared with the United States of America.
You always wondered why that app didn't exist. Now you can make it. Meet Replit.
Joining us now is Stephen Walt, the Belfer Professor of International Affairs at Harvard Kennedy School. Let's dive right in, Professor. The Munich report, very stark, clearly pointing at President Trump's administration. Did such blunt wording surprise you?
Yes and no. I mean, the tone of the report is really quite unusual. I can't remember seeing something coming out of a mainstream European organization with a tone quite like that, quite as stark. But on the other hand, it's not surprising given the Trump administration's, I think, consistently hostile, even predatory behavior towards long-term allies. And I think Europeans have finally woken up to the fact that this is a fundamentally different relationship, and it's going to have to be dealt with directly and, bluntly, I guess is the best way to put it.
The relationship has very much changed between Washington and Ottawa. But how are the majority of European governments dealing with this new U.S. relationship?
Well, I think that they're, trying to hedge in a variety of ways and engaging in risk reduction.
Okay. So this is the same point. Although we covered yesterday that Marco Rubio has said that we and Europeans share the same blood, we have the same origins, and we look forward to a better partnership with them. Look, when the problem began with Greenland, okay, Greenland is full of resources. We covered it that the EU does not want to give it up. They know what is there. There is oil, there are rare earth minerals, there are a lot of things. So Europe definitely wants a piece of that, because a lot of European economy is dependent upon US. A lot of European army or defense is dependent upon US. We covered that the chief of NATO commented that if you have to replace NATO, if you have to leave NATO, then you don't need to put in 5% of GDP, you need to put 10% of GDP. And if you have to have nuclear weapon, it is a tremendous headache. So all that being said, I am not surprised by the comments which were made last year by Vice President of US, and I am not surprised that Trump is able to, put pressure upon Europe to give up Greenland. It is not something that, um, like, you need to understand. This kind of transaction has happened before. US has asked for some. I think there was a trade with Denmark for an island. I don't exactly remember the name, but I've covered that. I'll make another video on it if that requires. So there has already been one transaction where land was given by by Denmark or the European Union to US in exchange for money. This kind of transaction happened between US and Russia as well in the past. So these things are normal. Okay. Now this has blown out of proportion because of resources in Greenland. Initially, Greenland was liberated by US because it was occupied by Germany, but US liberated it. Although on pressure of UN, US had to give it back, but they did not want to. So they constructed a military base, but now it's about resources. And US wants it, Europe wants it. So there is a fracture, or these words, international order is now under destruction. So these words are being used. EU is making all kinds of deal with almost every other country for which the deals which they had been stalling for years. So Europe is trying to make that. They went, the UK Prime Minister, I think, went to China as well. The Canadian Prime Minister went to China. So these kinds of things are happening. Although these are like, I personally believe these are like ripples in the water. We'll have to wait and see what happens, because you're trying to be friends with someone else. What if they don't want to be friends with you, or that person has a problem of its own? China is currently stuck with the regime change problem in its own country, because there was a military coup being organized by one of the close members of the party who has been in army for a long time. Now that person has vanished. We covered that as well. So, but with so many things going on with so many countries, it is not easy to make new alliances. So it's like better stick with the ones you have. And Europe is not having that good of an economy. It does not have that good of a military. And Russian President Vladimir Putin absolutely hates Europe. He is not a big fan of Europe. We have shown this in a video of us in the past. He does not like it. So with a neighbor that dangerous, you need alliance with a country like US. I hope that things get sorted out over here. Anyways, let's move on to the next thing. Okay, so there was a Ukrainian drone strike on Taman. Russia's Taman port damaged by Ukrainian drone strike. So this is now this has come just before the peace talks between Russia and US. We actually earlier covered that Russia has asked that the peace talks be held with only US and Russia and not with Europe, because Europe is constantly making demands which Russia is not going to accept. So they technically want this war to go on, and the same opinion he holds for President Zelensky. So there has been a drone strike on Russia's Taman port just before the negotiation. Now let's cover what the damage has been. Okay, let's take a look of a video.
Now, after Ukraine's renewed attacks on Russia, Moscow has now decided to decommission the Taman transshipment complex on the Black Sea coast, a key port for Moscow's LPG exports, in fear of impending drone strikes on the facility. Russian authorities have decided to suspend exports of liquefied petroleum gas, a highly combustible fuel, from the Black Sea port of Taman over concerns of potential drone strikes on the complex. The decision, as confirmed in a new report from Reuters, comes in the wake of fresh Ukrainian attacks targeting crucial infrastructure inside Russian territory. According to the report, Russian and Kazakh rail operators have decided to restrict fuel cargo towards the Taman transshipment complex. The Taman port has a capacity to export 20 million tons of cargo per year. It accounts.
Okay. So we'll have to see how Moscow retaliates to it, or if Moscow does not retaliate to it. I think Russian president is pretty smart. He's not just he. A lot of people will figure out what this is about. Hell, I can make a guess. And this was covered in the news article as well. So I think this is pretty common, and this supports the fact what the Russian president was saying, that Europe does not like the peace deal. So let's take a look at another video by Israel President Netanyahu.
I will not hide from you that I expressed my skepticism of any deal with Iran, because frankly Iran is reliable on one thing: they lie and they cheat.
Netanyahu says any deal must include several components for the security of Israel, the U.S., the region, and the world.
First is that all enriched material has to leave Iran. The second is that there shall be no enrichment capability. And the third is to deal also with the questions of ballistic missiles. And the fourth is dismantle the axis of terror that Iran has built.
On Friday, a senior Iranian official reiterated that Iran's missile program is non-negotiable and said the Iranian military remains on high alert. Trump said Iran only wants to talk but not take action. When asked, he indicated he also favors a regime change.
Well, it seems like that would be the best thing that could happen.
Okay. So this was a video which you saw of Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, Benjamin Netanyahu, who says that he is skeptical about a deal. I think he has accused Iran of lying and cheating as well in a video. And he has outlined a few things that must happen, that must be ensured in the deal. As we have covered, Israeli Prime Minister is actually pressing for some pretty hard sanctions or rules to be imposed on Iran. We'll just have to see how things will happen. Now, I don't want to share my opinion on this, but I am going to share the opinion of US Secretary of State Marco Rubio on this. Okay, so let's take a look at this video.
Look, doing a deal with Iran is not easy. I said it yesterday, I'll repeat it again today. I mean, we have to understand that Iran ultimately is governed, and its decisions are governed by Shia clerics, radical Shia clerics, okay? These people make policy decisions on the basis of pure theology. That's how they make their decisions. So it's hard to do a deal with Iran. We've always said it's hard, but we're going to try. That's what the president is trying. I'm not going to prejudge those talks. I'm certainly not going to negotiate with Iran here in front of the press and on the stage. Our negotiators are on their way there now. They'll have meetings. We'll see what happens. We're hopeful there's a deal. The president always prefers peaceful outcomes and negotiated outcomes to things. He's a president that's shown his willingness to talk to anyone and meet with anyone. And I think that there's an opportunity here to diplomatically diplomatically reach an agreement that addresses the things we're concerned about, we will be very open and welcoming to that. But I don't want to overstate it either. It's going to be hard. I mean, we're dealing, it's been very difficult for anyone to do real deals with Iran because we're dealing with radical Shia clerics who are making theological decisions, not geopolitical ones. But let's see what happens. I hope it works out. We all hope it works out.
Okay. So we saw what Israeli Prime Minister said. We saw what Marco Rubio said. They say that the Iran is going to make a theological decision. It's not going to make a geopolitical decision. It's going to make a decision based on their ideology and not consider a geopolitical outcome for it. They don't want a geopolitical factor in mind. They have some ideas, and they're going to act on it. The point is that in this particular case, which I can see from here, Iran is predictable. I will not take sides on my speech over here, but in a war situation, when you are predictable, you're more likely to lose. Even I don't want a war, but I want to share one article by this is geopoliticalfeatures.com. There's an article by Reuters. Washington's plan. The US military is preparing for a sustained operation against Iran that could last weeks. Reuters reported, unlike the airstrikes against Iranian nuclear facilities last summer, the US military could hit state and secure targets this time, according to their carrier. Okay, there was one. Okay, it's asking for subscription. Sad. Okay. Anyways, so Reuters has reported the US military is preparing for sustained operation against Iran that could last weeks. Okay. This is what not me. This is what Marco Rubio was saying, that we are looking at a state which is making decisions based on theological facts and not geopolitical ones. US knows this, and US has already planned out weeks and weeks of military strikes against Iran. So when this all breaks out, it could be a massive war. Okay, this would not be one surgical strike which we saw on nuclear areas last year in 2025, where the B-2 bombers came and blew up the nuclear base and went away. This is not that. This is going to be sustained strikes for weeks and weeks to come. And when US is saying that it's going to be weeks, in reality, this could go for months. So once a strike comes, it could go for months. It's February, March, April. So if they launch a strike tomorrow, it could go up to 2 to 3 months. Anyways, I have one more news, that Indonesia has sent some troops to the Board of Peace in Gaza. Indonesia is a Muslim majority country and it supports Palestine heavily. It is not on the side of US and Israel. Israel and US are they're the head of the board. Now I'll show the article for it. I hope this is the one. Yeah, this is the one. Okay, we need to be careful to ensure that our military personnel are not supporting the Israeli military forces, said Mohammad Zulfikar Rakhmat, a Middle East expert with Jakarta Center of Economics and Law Studies. We need to be careful that our military forces are not fighting against wrong actors. Okay. So they are skeptical that their army might be used against Palestinians or in areas which they don't want to be used, which is valid. Which is a valid concern. Now there was a point over here which says why they want to be part of the Board of Peace. It was because that there is no Palestinian side on the Board of Peace, and they believe that there should be one in that. So that is why they've joined. Okay, it must be. I'm forgetting the line which it was here, but that is what the Indonesia is saying, that it has sent troops, but it wants to ensure that the troops are not being utilized to an agenda which does not go in line with Indonesia's agenda. So, and they want to be on the Board of Peace because they want a Palestinian side over there as well, which is a valid concern. So this was all. Major headlines are still U.S. and Iran. I personally feel there could be a war breaking out tomorrow, because it's what, like, this whole thing is like a coin on a globe. One small move and the coin is going to fall off, and we'll have to see where it falls off, because Marco Rubio is saying that Iran is a state that acts on theological ideas. So who knows if before the peace negotiations they will strike, or if US wants to control the oil of Iran and does not want to give it a chance, then before the peace negotiation US will strike, because US has done that before with Iraq, I guess. They gave them time, they gave them 48 hours and they struck at 40 hours. I saw this in a video, I'll have to validate it, but that's what I heard. So we'll have to see who wants what. The Greenland issue is, I don't think it's over. It will surface, it will resurface as soon as this thing goes down. As soon as the Iran thing goes down, it's going to resurface, because President Trump is going to want only one thing on his plate at a time. Even everybody does. Okay, thank you everyone. Hope you like this. Subscribe to us and like the video if you enjoyed today's discussion. Thank you. Bye.